Hi everyone, welcome to the Furniture Fix. I'm Raina, and this week I'm doing my intro a little different. I'm at the school line waiting for my kids to get out. Actually, we're just waiting for brother at this point. We got sister back here. So this week's fix is going to be a long dresser for my mom. She recently moved into a casita and needs more storage. She currently has a tall boy dresser that is in the same style as the one I'll be working on. So it's going to look really great together, and I'm going to try to match the stain as close as possible to it, which I think I can do. This dresser I picked up from Marketplace needs a lot of work. It was a really good deal on it. It was like $50, but a lot of stuff needs to get fixed on it. So why don't you come with me and see how I get this one fixed? So after a few days of looking on Marketplace for a dresser that I could fix up, my brother found this one, and of course I scooped it up. Now it does have lots of scratches all throughout, as you'll see here. The drawers have a lot of work to be done. A lot of the railings that hold the drawer in, the backs of them are cracked. I've got a big hole in one of the drawers, as you'll see coming up here also. So a lot of work to be done on this one, but I'm not afraid. I can definitely handle it. The first thing I like to do is to remove all the hardware. This is great because it allows you to clean behind wherever the plates were. And I'm not going to be using these batwing handles anyway, so we gotta get them out of the way. I always vacuum my pieces no matter what. You want to get all up in there and make sure there's no spiders, debris, dust, dirt, all that. Here I opted to use stripper, although a very old stripper, so I'm not going to be using that one after this, but I didn't clean the piece with a degreaser like I normally do because the stripper will take care of all of that. Normally, stripper is a smooth, liquidy substance, not globby and clumpy like this one. I was given this stripper, so I thought I'd use it before I threw it away. It worked okay, but I will not be using this in the future. I definitely think the quality of that stripper has a lot to do with why the finish that was on here before didn't come out more consistently or come off more consistently. But I'm just going to go ahead and rinse all this off with some warm water and some Dawn and just get to sanding after this. It's time to sand, and I'm starting with an 80 grit. I'll move up all the way up to a 180 because I'm taking it down to bare wood and then staining it. I really don't want to go past 180. And don't forget to put your mask on before you start sanding. Sometimes sanding can take a few hours, especially when you're trying to get down to the bare wood. So what I like to do is pop in my headphones and listen to one of my favorite podcasts. You can see how beautiful the bare wood is. I'm sad that I'm gonna have to stain it darker, but this is for my mom, not just a piece that I'm working on for myself or to sell. I am super happy this piece is solid wood. I don't have to worry about burning through the veneer. I'm just sanding away without a care in the world. So I've used Bondo to get rid of that big hole, and I opted for putting dowels into the hardware holes instead of filling it. I did video this portion, but for some reason I've lost that section. So let's move on. Here I'm going to be filling in those cracks. All the drawers have these cracks, so I do have to go and do all of the drawers this way. I'm just filling it in with a little bit of glue, and then I'll be clamping them. I'm going to be using some quick wood to fill in some of the larger gashes that I have throughout the dresser. So the way this works is you just grab what you need. You're going to knead it with your fingers. You probably want to be using gloves, but I'm really bad at that. So you just want to go ahead and get it pliable so that you can put it where you need it and then shape it. This will dry pretty hard and you can go back and sand all the extra off. Here's another area where there is a huge gouge out of the drawer. So I'm going to be using the quick wood. I'm going to be packing it into that crevice there. And once that's packed in there and dry, I'm going to go ahead and put in some mahogany colored wood filler, and that's just so that it doesn't look so discolored in the end once I put my wax on all the drawers. It'll kind of blend in a little better than if I was to just leave the quick wood as is. Once this dries, I'll go back and sand off all the extra, and it won't look so stark. Everything will kind of blend in together in the end. This drawer has a corner that is completely gone, so I'm gonna go in and fill this part in. I'm gonna use some of the mahogany wood filler, and I did this instead of the quick wood because I felt like to color match it would be a lot easier once I go and stain it. It would look better. It's more pliable than the quick wood to work with, so it does take a little while to kind of get that on there. You're never going to get the perfect shape right away. That's something you're going to achieve once you go back and sand it, once that's dried. You'll see me coming in with some tape just to help hold the filler because it's so soft that it kind of wants to do its own thing. So this will just help me keep that in place while it dries. I'm going to be using the JB Weld Wood Restore putty to fix the hole that I have in one of the drawers. Now I have already used it on the underside. Now I'm going back in to fill the inside of it because there's a indentation. So I want that to be all even, and you'll see that here in a minute. But first I need to put the putty, and I like to use a cardboard piece. That way I can just throw it away when I'm done. The hardener, you'll just want to use a little bit because once you put that on and mix it to a uniform color, you don't have that much time I live in Arizona, so I literally have like 2 minutes before it starts to harden. I'm going to be lining my drawers, so I definitely want this to be as even and flat as possible. So I'll go back and sand this nice and smooth so the whole drawer is level. Now back to sanding. I'm going to go ahead and continue with the 100 grit. Like I said, I like to go up to the 180 as my final grit when I am going to stain a piece. It just helps the stain penetrate the wood a lot better than if you used a finer grit. I'll be using a soft sanding pad for the contours on the legs and anywhere that has rounded edges so that I don't sand off the rounded parts. I love using these finger sanders to get into these little tight areas where your orbital sander will not be able to get to. Now I'm ready to sand the front of the drawers. I'm going to start with 100 grit followed by the 180 grit. And just know that I will be doing this to each and every drawer. First 100 grit all the drawers, and then the 180 grit all the drawers. I just don't want to bore you with every single drawer. I always like to go and sand the sides of my drawers. It just makes them look really nice and gets them prepped for when I go in and put some beeswax on the sides. So even though I used wood dowels to fill in the hardware holes, I'm still going to go in with some wood filler, because even though you sand the tops of those dowels down, they don't always get super smooth. This will just ensure that once I fill it and it dries, that I'm going to have the smoothest, most level surface possible, and you won't be able to see where those old holes were. These are the 3 drawers at the very top of the dresser, so I'm not going to be using the pulls. I'm actually going to be putting knobs. So very important that I fill these and make sure that you can't see them. Now I just gotta sand away at all those little crevices around the piece, just making sure I get all of the old stain off. This will be the final grit on the drawers before I'm ready to start the pre-stain process. I love using a tack cloth to get all the dust nibs off of my piece before I go in with some pre-stain or even paint when I'm painting a piece. It's just a nice sticky little cloth that does a great job of picking up all that tiny dust from your piece. Sanding is complete and she is looking beautiful. I almost forgot to fix this drawer guide. All it needs is a thicker screw so that it'll grab the wood around it, because it's just gotten loose throughout the years. And this was a pretty easy fix. Just gotta pop that off, get a new screw on, and we're good to go. I like using a pre-stain conditioner anytime I'm using an oil-based stain. This is just going to help me reduce the blotchiness or the unevenness that stain sometimes does on certain types of woods. So it's super easy. You're just going to use a foam brush or even a regular brush if you wanted to. Even a lint-free rag will do the trick. You just want to spread it all over and let that dry to whatever the brand specifications are. In this case, it was to let it sit for at least a half hour before applying your stain. The drawers have all been pre-stained, and now I'm going to go in and pre-stain the body of the dresser. Now it's time for the stain. I'm applying it with a sponge. This is just my preferred method, but I change it up from time to time. You can use a lint-free rag, you can use a brush or a foam brush, but this just seems to give me a more consistent application. And once you've applied it, you just kind of want to smooth it out, always going with the grain for your final swipes. So after a few minutes of that stain sitting on my drawers, I'm going to go ahead and wipe back all the extra stain with a lint-free rag. There really is no right or wrong answer to how long you leave stain on. That's going to be up to you and how dark or light you want your stain to be in the end. So the darker you want the stain, the longer you're going to leave it on. But just be careful, you don't want to leave it on too long or else it's going to dry on you and it's going to be very hard to pull away that extra stain that's sitting on top there. It's going to become kind of sticky and tacky. Don't be afraid of making a mistake or starting over. That's the beauty of refinishing furniture. There's no limit to what you can do, and you can do things over and it'll be okay. When you're applying your stain, you can go against the grain to begin with, but you want to make sure that your last few passes, your final passes, are going to be with the grain. That's going to give you the smoothest finish possible. And now that it's been sitting with the stain for a few minutes, I'm going to just go ahead and wipe away that extra stain that's sitting on top there. Now she's all stained and ready for the next step. So it looks like even though my hardware hole patches are super smooth, the stain colored that particular area darker. So all I need to do is go in with some furniture touch-up paint and blend that in. I'm going to start with a lighter color and then graduate to some darker blends as I go. You're going to see that it's disappearing before your eyes, and that's just going to be a lot of back and forth with the couple of different colors. Sometimes you even need to blend in 3 or 4 colors. It just depends on the variations in the wood. I like to take a dry brush and kind of smooth everything out. It just helps to blend everything nicely. And once that dries, it's going to look like there was no holes at all. This dresser is going to stand at the foot of my mom's bed, so I went ahead and painted the back. Looks like I'll be spraying my top coat inside the garage since it's a bit breezy outside. I'm very impatient, so I'm not going to wait until it dies down. I'll be using the General Finishes High Performance top coat in satin. I like using the satin because it gives it just a little bit of sheen. What I like to do is stir it for about a minute or 2. You don't want any air bubbles getting in there. You also want to make sure that you're straining your liquid, be it paint or top coat or primer, whatever you're putting in your paint can, make sure you strain it, because what can happen is if there's a glob or some debris that gets in through your sprayer, it's going to ruin the project you're working on to where you're going to have to wait till that dries, sand it off, and then reapply. So it's best to just strain it at the beginning and you don't have to worry. I always like to check my settings and then do a practice spray on some cardboard just to make sure that it's spraying the way I want it to. I like to start at the top of the dresser whenever I'm spraying dressers, but you can start wherever you want. I always do a 50% overlap. That's just going to give you the best coverage. And this is in real time, so you can see you want to go kind of slow, kind of fast. You're just going to have to find that pace. You don't want to stay anywhere for too long or else you'll get drips or unevenness. You're about to see here where I got a little too close to the dresser when I was spraying, and it's really thick. Now, that's too big of an area for me to fix it and then respray. So I'm going to have to wait until that dries and then I'm going to sand that off. But it's not going to be fun, and here I did it again. So you definitely want to be conscious of how far your sprayer is from the piece. I wanted to mention that this sprayer does have a setting where you can make the spray come out in a cone shape or a round shape, and that would be ideal for these thinner parts so that I don't waste so much top coat. But I didn't find out about it until recently. After that first coat of your top coat, you want to go back through with a 220 or higher if you'd like, and just go ahead and sand any debris, any little nibs that are on there. You want to get that as smooth as possible and ready for your second coat, and then you want to do that in between any coats that you do of your top coat. This is where I went a little heavy-handed, and now there's a drip that I've got to try to sand out. So I've got to be careful not to create like a divot, but also try to get that drip off at the same time. So this is going to take a couple of different techniques. One is to sand with the paper, and then you'll see that I'm going to need the big guns, the carbide scraper. And I'm just gently trying to scrape off the bumps that are on there from the drips. And I'll just go back and forth until I am happy with the smoothness of it. So this will be the second coat. Ultimately, I ended up doing 4 coats on the top because it's a heavily used surface, and then 3 coats on the sides. You won't see all those coats being done here on video because then my video would be like 5 hours long. So that's why I kind of show you what's being done and then just let you know that this is going to take however many coats, or this is going to take this many rounds of whatever it is, and that way you're not sitting here watching the same thing over and over because nothing really changes. This is what it is. It's spraying back and forth, so I won't put you through all of that. Now I'm prepping the drawers so that the sides don't get any top coat on them. What I'm going to do to the sides is put some beeswax on them. That way they'll be conditioned and also smell really good. So you'll just go through and spray each one of them, sanding in between coats, and I do about 3 coats on these guys. So for this final sanding, I will take a brown paper bag and use that to give my piece the smoothest finish without any scratches on the surface. You can totally use a higher grit sandpaper, but for me this is the best way to ensure that I don't get any micro scratches. It's what works for me, but you do what works for you, of course. Okay, now we're getting to the final details. So here I'm going to be lining the drawers. I'm going to be showing you one of the smaller drawers from the top and one of the larger drawers from the bottom. So you'll definitely want to measure out the amount of paper you need, and then you're going to just press it in there gently and just kind of, spread it out and make sure that there's no wrinkles. You'll want to use like a flat Pampered Chef scraper or any kind of scraper that you want. I personally use an old gift card, and then you'll trim away all the edges that are extra with a very sharp razor blade. And there you have it. And then the final step on this would be to put your hardware on. In this case, it would be this knob. And then again, you're going to do it for the bigger boxes too, the bigger drawers. Just measure what you need. I don't like to work with extra because it makes it harder to push it in evenly, and it is hard to put this paper in. It looks easy, but it's not, trust me. And you'll just go through and smooth that out with your spreader and then get rid of all the extra overhang with a razor. This hardware that I'm using is almost identical to the hardware that the tall boy my mom currently has in her room has. So I was really happy to find these. Now you kind of do have to put them together, but it's really easy. As I mentioned before, I'll be using the Howard's Feed and Wax. This is a great conditioner to put on sides of drawers. It's going to give that wood some moisture. It's going to make it smell really nice, very mild. And what you want to do is you want to apply it liberally, and then after a few minutes you'll want to wipe back any extra wax that's on there, and that's just going to leave it looking so healthy, so smooth, and really beautiful. So you're going to see me apply the wax on this drawer guide, but I'm also going to go and apply it on every single drawer guide in the body of the dresser. What this is going to do is it's going to allow it to slide really nice and smoothly. Once you've applied your beeswax and let it sit for a few minutes, you don't want to forget to go back and wipe off the extra wax that's on there. Otherwise, you're going to have a pretty slick surface on all the sides of your drawers. So it's time to put these back where they go. I did number these at the beginning of the project, but I don't know what happened in that video. But I do recommend that you number each drawer and where it goes. I usually do the bottom back with a pencil, and that way you know that each drawer is going to fit perfectly in each of the corresponding slots. Okay, this dresser is fixed. Let's take a look at what she looked like before. We've got this old rundown dresser, lots of scratches, gouges, and some repairs that needed to be done to the drawers. Let's take a look now that she's all fixed. That color came out so beautiful. It matches my mom's current tall boy so nicely. I absolutely love opening up a drawer and seeing a beautiful liner inside. This dresser was a lot of work, and it was a lot of time spent making this beautiful for my mom. Very well worth it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching this transformation. Your support means everything to me, so if you like this, hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next week on the Furniture Fix.